I fucking love Halloween. Ever since I was a child getting so wasted off Reese's peanut butter cups and Snickers that I passed out on the streets till sunrise, it was my all-time favorite day of the year. I mean, what's there not to love about it? Creative lawn decorations, cheap off-brand costumes, fun parties with friends. No wonder it's one of the highest grossing holidays in America, right below compulsory spending money season, and how the fuck is back to college a holiday? But the best part of Old Hallows Eve? The entertainment. TV specials and programming blocks featuring the spookiest episodes of all your favorite cartoons. Who in our generation doesn't have fond memories of SpongeBob's Halloween specials or The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror? How about all the progressively more and more disappointing horror films we have hitting theaters this time of years? Yeah, I fancy some goofy popcorn flicks here or there, but if it's got one of these guys attached to it, you know my ass is in the seat. But Chris, you watch horror movies all year round. Yeah, I also wear wacky costumes all year round, but at least in October, I get an excuse. My obsession with horror runs so deep that there was a period in my life where it was all I watched. Hell, the majority of the early movies I made in high school drew heavily from my consistent diet of slasher flick cheese. And yes, that was me in high school, don't ask. But I'm not just your run-of-the-mill horror movie fanatic. I'm also a fucking nerd. Something I find particularly fascinating about the horror genre is its permeation throughout the world, regardless of time or place. Emotions like fear and uneasiness do not spawn from a vacuum. They come from people who bring their own culture, beliefs, and even language into the picture to create something uniquely bone-chilling. A deep dive into the horror cinema of another country, or even just the past of your own country, could provide insight into what was happening at the time. The societal fears that come to define entire generations also leave their mark on the movies we watch, regardless of intention. And thus, horror has had to adapt to the changing sensibilities and anxieties of its surroundings in order to stay relevant. As much as I love Dawn of the Dead or the original Dracula, they're not the same kind of scary as each other, nor would either of them be considered frightening to someone who's been exposed to more recent iterations of the genre. But then, that got me thinking. October is a particularly nostalgic time of year. The flare of orange leaves burns with a sort of childlike wonderment and harkens back to days when Halloween was truly scary. It begs the question, what are the most culturally significant horror movies, in my opinion? Not for modern America or what the kids are getting into nowadays. For my generation. For me. Well, in order to do that, we're gonna have to go back to. If you were born around the turn of the millennium like I was, you were more than likely raised by the internet. Depending on how careful you were, or stupid, you might have seen some stuff that spooked you. A screamer prank, a creepy image, a chain message claiming that a girl with no face will stab you in your sleep, eat your parents, and set your dog on fire if you don't share this email to 500 of your friends. Maybe that sudden jolt of fear instilled you with a sense of awareness. It gave you a reason to think twice before you double-click. Or maybe it intrigued you, and before you knew it, you were reading creepypastas and following the trails of clues set up by another ARG. Or you started drawing Jeff the Killer X Slenderman porn. Either way, you're a product of the internet. Speaking of Slenderman, Marble Hornets was a 2009 YouTube found footage series based on the online Slenderman mythos, or, as he's referred to in the actual show, the Operator. The creators, Troy Wagner and Joseph Delage, were quick to capitalize off the famous creepypasta, with their first entry coming out only 10 days after Slenderman appeared on the Something Awful forums. Since then, many similar ARGs and found footage shows have come out online, utilizing the same low-budget techniques and storytelling beats. What started as an amateur found footage series, blurring the lines between fiction and reality, yeah, some people thought this was real, became a defining piece of media for internet horror. And because of it, Slenderman was the scariest icon the internet had to offer, until, well...
We've got to have money.
And that wasn't the only film project that got started on the early internet. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, Salad Fingers, Kraina Garjabov, Treats for Beasts. The early internet was, and still is, a good place for filmmakers to get started. Couple that with the fact that many directors begin their careers working in the horror genre, and you're left with a plethora of breakout filmmakers saturating your early internet nostalgia with their creepy art projects. But what makes horror a good genre to cut your directorial teeth on? Is it just the easiest one to manage? Well, yes and no. For things like period dramas and action films and the sort, the way to sell your world's believability is by letting your budget show on the screen. Set pieces, costumes, big CGI explosion fests, they all cost
money.
By contrast, horror can be a lot cheaper. It's a unique style of filmmaking in that, contrary to what you might think, it's a lot more about what you leave out rather than what you put in. We are a lot more afraid of what we do not know, and because of that, withholding information from your audience is the most effective way to play on their natural fear responses. But what about videos that unintentionally played with our fight or flight responses? Stuff that, because of the nature of the internet, information can be withheld or completely edited out. Any of y'all remember I Feel Fantastic? Do any of us want to? A man named John Bergeron created a tech demo for a robot he built called Tara the Android. As part of these demos, Bergeron created multiple music videos featuring her singing, probably to show off the capabilities of her voice bank. While I admire his ambitions to the upteenth degree, his dissonant music production and less than professional videography makes these videos some of the most unintentionally creepy things on the internet. This led to a YouTube channel called Creepy Blog, reposting one of them with a description drawing heavy analogies to Pygmalion, the Greek legend of a man who built a statue of the perfect feminine form in his eyes because he hated real women. Other theories circling around at the time involved a serial killer who hated the screams of his victims so much that he recreated them in robotic form, exclaiming that they feel fantastic. Lots of video projects got this sort of backstory-changing treatment, with a third party manipulating the context in order to make them seem a lot scarier. Agamemnon Counterpart was originally a submission for the D2K1 competition. Gateway of the Mind was a recording of performance art titled Transfiguration. And of course, there's my favorite, Dining Room, or There Is Nothing. War titles have been used to convey double meanings, is what I would say if half of them weren't just an over-explanation of the plot. But in this case, the title might be suggesting a duality rather than a reiteration or description. Directed by an elusive figure named David B. Earl, this film is as simple and short as it is bone-chillingly scary. We open on what appears to be a wax figure of a woman surrounded by flames. Lovely. As the camera zooms out, she says something backwards and her head falls into her plate. Now, with a wider view, we can see the surrounding dining room, and if you noticed, there's a portion sitting right there for you. At the halfway point, the film begins to play back in reverse, evident by the fire in the background. As we zoom back in on a closer view than we ever wanted, what she muttered before is finally revealed. There is nothing. Many different aspects of this film, be they intentional or by chance, come together to boost its creepiness. For one, the white makeup on the woman's face not only washes out all identifiable features, but her complexion resembles a blood-drained cadaver. Couple that with the fact that we're naturally averse to silent eye contact. The rising fires behind her conjure images of medieval paintings of hell, and serve as a shaky backlight that constantly reframes her face, making it all the more uncanny. As for the music, yeah, it's unsettling, alright. Distorted, shaky piano notes that ring with uncomfortable dissonance in our ears. Which is funny because if you speed it up, it's just an A major scale. I'm getting flashbacks to music lessons already. Humans are naturally afraid of things that remind us of death. Her corpse-like complexion, raging fires, unplaceable sounds, death. So being bombarded with all of these things in the first frame is a staccato intro of fright that could very quickly cause uneasiness. It's like a jump scare that doesn't need to rely on cheap loud noises or screams, just the involuntary responses of your pattern-seeking monkey brain that you can't avoid. When it comes to the film looping back at the midpoint, the director had this to say on his website. When looped, there is no actual beginning or end, and no real sense of where the beginning and end actually are. This piece was inspired by a personal, paradoxical desire for empirical proof that there is nothing on the other side. I wanted to blur the distinction between the two states, and to state the paradox by showing someone who is coming back from life, or death, and denies its existence, therefore fulfilling the paradox. Here, I think at least, is where the duality of the title shows its face. There is a dining room, or there is nothing. We have the dining room, a space many of us have in our homes, a place where we eat, where we spend time with family, in other words, where we live our lives. And then we have nothing. Absence given form. a word that means about as much as it represents. The only word we can use to describe this spaceless, timeless void that awaits us when consciousness ends. Death. To me, this film is saying that there is no beginning, middle, or end. No heaven, hell, limbo, or afterlife. There is only life or death. There is either a dining room or there is nothing. I saw this video when I was little and it fucked me up. There's something so soul-draining about her lifeless, pale gaze. No matter how many times I've seen it before and I know what's coming, it always manages to, oh god, why did I decide to make this video at night? Nothing gives me the heebies or the jeebies quite like a scary white face. Wait, that came out wrong. However, taking a step back and trying to understand the intentions behind it almost made it a lot less scary. I can now appreciate it as the work of avant-garde art it was intended to be. And as I said before, horror can be done cheaply because it's more about what you leave out than what you put in. And with how bare bones and kind of minimalist this film is, it's a shining example of that. Fear is a response that builds off of confusion, so the less you know about something, the scarier it may seem to you. Remember when Five Nights at Freddy's first came out? It was a genuinely terrifying video game that grabbed the internet and shook it to its very core. I remember playing it in middle school. It built itself off the uncanny nature of Chuck E. Cheese animatronics and how they inadvertently ended up frightening children at birthday parties. A lot of the horror came from not knowing why, but for some reason, these animatronics come to life at night and kill. But almost 10 years and 13 games later, there's novels, comic books, toys, a movie, and pages upon pages of lore explaining what makes these machines sentient, their backstories, and whatever this is. The face that FNAF showed the world today is a far cry from the mask it wore in its infancy, but as such, it can be appreciated as something entirely different. Maybe you'd rather have fun digging into the lore and enjoying the characters over being scared. I think that's the power that the internet has when it comes to the presentation of horror. You can let it be this ambiguous, unsettling thing that remains etched in the back of your mind, or you can expand on it, dig deeper, and find something else to take away from it. The internet is a scary place. As many of our younger selves found out, having the entire world at your fingertips means your reach stretches to even its darkest corners. These scary and creepy videos from our childhood, if you want to dignify them the way I do, these short horror films, in the ways they blur the lines between fiction and reality, and how they weaponize their lack of context, yet encourage us to dig deeper. These are our generation's defining horror movies. They not only scared the bejesus out of us, but they left their mark on what we would consider internet horror forever. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little romp through my personal childhood trauma. If you want to see me talk about other films and art in the future, do me a big favor, hit the subscribe button, and leave me a like. I would really appreciate it. My job as a scare actor at a haunted house has given me not only a reinvigorated love for horror as a sort of nebulous fandom, but it also gave me a throat infection. Old Hallows Eve. Which I am currently suffering through as I make this video, so I'm sorry if my voice sounds a little hoarse. That's why they got me to do half the narration. Oh, shut up, you. With that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you guys next time.
He sucked my dick.
He sucked my monster dick.
My monster dick.
It was thin like a stick.
He sucked my dick.
It was harder than a brick.
He sucked my dick.
He sucked my monster dick. This werewolf man who stood real tall, I asked him kindly to suck my paw.